be able to share something with you after all that you have done for me. So I promise you this is going to be quick, because as I thought about all of the people whose hands have been imprinted all over my life that have helped shape me into the man and the leader that I am today, it was enough to break me down to my brake pads. And so I believe it is fitting as well as appropriate as we traverse into this season of Thanksgiving that you guys have taken this particular time intentionally to honor yourselves as retired teachers. And so I'm simply here to just say thank you. I'm here to say thank you. And so I've titled my little message that I want to talk about, I remember the time. I remember the time. This year, President Mouton marks 25 years when the celebrated entertainer Michael Jackson recorded one of his most famous songs entitled Remember the Time. Y'all remember that song?
Yes, sir.
It was in this song that Mike, as he was so affectionately called, he recalls to his mind and he remembers the time when he fell in love. But instead of remembering in the same fashion as Mike did some 25 years ago, I remember the time when I matriculated through elementary, middle, and high school. And as I remembered that time and thought about all of the administrators and all of the educators and all of the teachers who didn't just have an influence, because all influence isn't good. We saw that last night. Huh? But I thought about all of the people who had a positive influence on my life. And so I simply want to say thank you. You see, I remember the time when I was in the first grade at John F. Kennedy Elementary School, and Miss Parks giving me red ends in conduct on that yellow report card. I remember that. I vividly remember my second grade teacher, Miss Brenda Robinson, who bestowed me with my very first Student of the Month recognition by publicly sharing with the entire class that there is one student who is always ready to learn, and that's Arthur Woodard. I remember my third grade teacher, Miss Elizabeth Roy, who rewarded me for my academic performance by putting me in her personal vehicle to eat pizza at what used to be Pizza Hut on Highway 14. Y'all remember when Pizza Hut was on Highway 14?
Yes.
I remember being in the 4th grade and Mrs. Norvell Coley, who long before she ever became my mother-in-law was my elementary school librarian. And I remember her telling me that she appreciated in the 4th grade my ability to think critically. I remember my 4th grade teacher, Mrs. Mary Williams, who told me that it didn't matter how smart I was, that people were only going to remember my bad behavior. But she hugged me after she told me. I remember my 5th grade teacher, Miss Betty Gaines, who sent home negative behavior reports on me daily. Some of it I did, but some of it I didn't. And the stuff I didn't do, it motivated me to prove her wrong. I remember being in the 6th grade at Raynard Middle School and my librarian, Miss Della Thomas, teaching me how to use a card catalog. I remember being in the 7th grade and late Assistant Principal William Bill White, who every day would say the Lord is still in the blessed business, put me in his personal vehicle and went to the residence of a young man who had stolen my brand new Dennis Rodman tennis shoes from the locker room locker. He put me in his car, went to that young man's house, made him apologize for taking my shoes, and then gave me my shoes back. I remember Mr. Irving Salyer, who taught me in the 7th grade social studies, and as a retired teacher would attend all of my high school football games and made it a point to find me after every game and admonish me and say, Mr. Woodard, Keep up the good work. I remember being in the 8th grade and Mr. Petrie looking me in my eye, shaking my hand and uttering these words, "It doesn't matter if you win or not, but today you will get my vote for the Raynard Middle School Student of the Year." And even though I didn't win, his words meant the world to me.
Yes.
I remember Mr. Jerome Goodley in the 9th grade at Lake Charles Boston High School teaching me Algebra 1 and then telling me that I would go very far in math. He told me, "Arthur, when you get into those upper level math classes in college, those long equations that you're going to have to work out, when you get to the end of them, they will all come back to this foundation you're getting in Algebra 1. He was right. I remember my 10th grade teacher, Mr. Robert Pete, who introduced me to computer science, which fueled and inspired me to want to become a computer programmer. I remember my 11th grade teacher, Miss Lorette Laverne, who I impudently stated in her class one time that her chemistry equations were too hard and that we were not in college. But her response blew me away, and I was embarrassed that I had done that, because she simply turned to me and said, "You know, Arthur, you're right, you're not in college. But my job is to prepare you for college." She did. I remember my 12th grade English teacher, Miss Cheryl Fuselaire, who taught me the 7 parts of speech, the difference between your, Y-O-U-R, and your, Y-O-U, apostrophe R-E. All that I know about subject and verb agreement, and she is the reason today why I love the intellectual game show Jeopardy. I remember my teacher, Mr. Don Maxill, who would teach music on Tuesdays and Thursdays at John F. Kennedy Elementary School, and would force me to tuck in my shirt every time I spoke in his class. And so today I dress in all of my sartorial splendor. It's because Mr. Maxill taught me, don't dress for the job you have, but dress for the job you're going to eventually want. I remember my teacher, Mr. John Steels, who literally 1 week after obtaining and procuring my driver's license, trusted me to drive his personal vehicle. It was a Mazda 626, champagne colored, all the way to Baton Rouge, Louisiana for the Mu Alpha Theta math competition, because he wanted to make sure nobody was left behind. I remember my high school basketball coach, he's sitting right there, who not only taught me about the game of basketball, but gave me valuable lessons about the game of life. I remember all of my principals, Mr. Julius Pierce, John F. Kennedy Elementary School, and Miss Elowina Woods, Raynard Middle School, and Mr. Solomon Cannon at Lake Charles Boston High School, who provided an excellent and extraordinary example of leadership for me. And today, I remember all of you who may not have taught me directly, but indirectly, you all have been the village that have helped make me the man I am today. And so I honor all of you on this day. I acknowledge all of your sacrifice and your labor on this day. It was not in vain. Look at me. And I do it all because I remember the time. Thank you.